It is my absolute pleasure to welcome our esteemed guest today, Mr. Sree Sreenivasan. Mr. Sreenivasan is a true innovator and leader at the intersection of journalism and technology. Over 2 decades, he has worn many hats: a Columbia University professor, a digital media entrepreneur, the chief digital officer of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Columbia University, and the New York City itself. Those familiar with his work will recognize him as a leading voice in social media for shows like the Sree Shows, the NYT Read Along podcast, and his countless articles for the New York Times. Beyond this impressive career, Mr. Sreenivasan is a Fulbright scholar and was named one of the most influential young South Asians in America by Newsweek. He is a man who understands the power of communication and who is constantly pushing boundaries of what's possible in this ever-evolving digital age. With his deep understanding of both technology and its impact on storytelling, we are fortunate to have Sree with us to provide us a thought-provoking and nuanced perspective on the topic AI beyond hype and backlash. Welcome, sir. Joining with us today is a very special guest who needs no introduction, Mr. T.P. Srinivasan, a distinguished diplomat who served the nation at the highest honor as an Indian Foreign Services Ambassador. Mr. Srinivasan's presence here today, not just as a guest of reflections, but also to support his son, our chief guest, Mr. Sree, truly speaks volume of their incredible bond. Please join me in welcoming a true Indian diplomat, Mr. T.P. Srinivasan. All our esteemed guests, our client community, our partner community, the Technopark ecosystem, and students who have joined us. Your contribution, your support, and collaboration have been instrumental in our journey and our growth. We appreciate your contribution, and we're delighted to have all of you here. Next to all the reflectors out here, it is your engagement, your participation, your urge to widen your horizon that drives these sessions. You're the guys who makes it happen. So I welcome each and every one of you from the Reflections family to the session. Finally, the driving force behind Reflections, her relentless pursuit of excellence, has helped us achieve a 15x growth in just the past 5 years. It is her dedication and expertise which is an inspiration to all of us. Let me welcome our CEO, Deepa Sarojamal. I'd request Deepa to take the stage for her opening comments.
I know everyone has come to listen to both these eminent guests, so I'm not going to take a long time, but just wanted to spend a minute introducing everyone to the company that present here, just so that you know who you're talking to. First of all, I want to express my sincere gratitude to our eminent guests for coming and meeting with us today to enlighten us with their words. We're so lucky that we got 2 eminent guests on stage today, Mr. T.P. Srinivasan and Mr. Sree Sreenivasan. Looking forward to listening to both of you. I also want to give the guests on stage a real quick introduction to Reflections. We are a technology services company serving the US, Australia, New Zealand, Middle East, UK, and India markets, with our service offerings around data engineering, data science, cloud, product engineering, application and integration engineering, and so on. Having grown 15x in the last 5 years, we are recognized to be among one of the fastest growing companies, and several recognitions, which include, some of them are on the banners here. We figured in Deloitte's Tech Fastest 50 in India twice in a row. We are number 63 in Financial Times list of 500 high growth companies. And recently we figured at number 28 in Fortune's list of future ready workplaces. We're Great Places to Work certified, ISO 27001, PCI DSS certified, and SOC 2, Type 2, and so on, just so that we become a very elegant organization to work with. and we take pride in being a very small but big company, bringing the agility and nimbleness characteristics of small companies, but at the same time demonstrating the expertise and experience of large companies. We look forward to today's session. We know Mr. Sree Sreenivasan is going to talk to us about AI today. A big part of the audience is from technology background, and they would be interested to hear from you on how AI is changing the world, especially the technology services world, and how it is affecting the job market in terms of removing some jobs and creating some new jobs. Should we in technology services be worried in the long term or in the short term? I don't know. How do we stay relevant even with the advent of AI? These are some things we look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to hearing from Mr. T.P. Srinivasan as well. Any nugget of information from him with his vast multilateral experience would be valuable for all of us who are trying to build great companies and great careers here. Thank you once again for listening to me, and I give the stage over to Arjun to conduct the rest of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepa. Next, I'm honored to invite Mr. T.P. Srinivasan, a true titan in his own right. His illustrious career as a top Indian diplomat has undoubtedly changed the narrative of the nation. So it's an honor having you here, and I'd request you to share a few words with us.
Distinguished CEO Deepa. Deepa is a favorite name for us in the family. There are at least 3 Deepas. All right. So, good to see you. And of course, Jyoti, who is responsible for bringing us here. And this is the first time that I have the privilege of introducing my own son to you. And the story is that actually I was invited to come and speak to you. Jyoti told me that one day I should come and address reflections. And when Sree said he was coming here, I said I'll send the more qualified person to talk to you, because you wouldn't understand, you wouldn't be interested in what I would say. But what he says would be of interest to you, and that's why I suggested to her that he could replace me. And then she said, no, you also come along. So it's a privilege and the first experience in my life to introduce my own son to an audience. I'm sure you all read his bio and gone through the Google and I don't know, whatever you have covered. But what I say will not be in any of these. It will not be in Google, it will not be anywhere else, because I only know those kind of facts which I thought I'd share with you. He is our first son. He was born in Japan. That was where our first posting was. Lekha and I, unfortunately, she passed away last year. And this was our first posting. And the first baby came in about 4 months after we reached Japan. So we used it as a good honeymoon posting. And when he was born, the interesting thing was we were ushered into Shimohochiai Hospital in Japan with about 40 babies there for us to choose our baby. It was very easy because he was the only one with open eyes. Because all the Japanese babies, they all had closed eyes. And his color was slightly darker than theirs. And so we said, here is our baby. So we picked him up. And so that was very easy. And we spent about 2 years there at that time. And when we went to Moscow after that was the time that he was growing up, he was in the kindergarten, and he was a very ardent communist at that time. Because in the kindergarten, they were telling him what a great man Lenin was. And so he would stand up on the bed and give a speech on communism to us in Russian, which we did not follow. So now I don't think he remembers even one word of that. So he told us what a great person Lenin was. And we were a bit worried as to what would happen to him afterwards. And then I'll cut the story short. I was in Fiji as the Indian ambassador, and that is where he went to school. And he passed out with flying colors in Fiji. And we were, of course, wondering what we should do with him. We knew he was brilliant. And naturally, I wanted him, and my father even more particularly, that he should join the Foreign Service. So we manipulated to get him to St. Stephen's, where everybody takes the civil service examination. But he just refused to do that. He said, I shall be a journalist. The person who was most disappointed was my father, because he thought journalist was the person who brings newspapers to our house every day. You are going to be a journalist? But I explained to him, no, there are other kinds of journalists. But he never forgave me for giving him the permission not to take the civil service examination. In a way, it was good because he turned out to be a good journalist. And Chandan Mitra, who was his mentor at that time, predicted that he'll be one of India's leading journalists in the 21st century. So I was very impatient. Only in 21st century? That was 20th century at that time. Do we have to wait 1 century to see him as a big journalist? But it all turned out right. And so we went to New York, and he naturally got into the best journalism school in the world. That is Columbia Journalism School. And that was the time of the new media coming up. And so he became actually the person in charge of the new media. And we came to know the excitement of journalism, etc. there. And we never regretted that he did not join the Foreign Service, except when he visits some of his colleagues in St. Stephen's College, and they have big bungalows of the ambassadors. And that is the only time he feels a little bit guilty that he did not take the Foreign Service exam. But the recognition he has got and the various jobs he did, I think made us very happy, and he in fact has been happy. And there was a story of how he left Columbia, which was really sad because after 20 years, you don't leave a university like Columbia. But suddenly he called us and said, I'm going to the Metropolitan Museum in New York. So I said, why? Are you happy with Columbia? He said, no, 20 years earlier, when we were in New York, we used to take him to the Metropolitan Museum because that's the cheapest place to go for entertainment. You didn't have to pay much. And apparently he had fallen in love with the Metropolitan Museum at that time. He said, this is like a girlfriend who was inviting me to marry her after 30 years. So he just went to the Metropolitan Museum. He enjoyed it thoroughly, and then he moved on to various things, and finally he has now his own company. So the great thing about him, if I may say so, is the ability to network with people. And that he started doing when we was very young. And the whole family, he kept us close to each other, even though the communication was not so fast. And I had a mother-in-law who established the first mail account in, not email, Gmail was not there, but email account. And that those days the messages used to be printed in the post office and delivered at home. So she was probably the first one to do that, again because of him. So the technology got intertwined with his life. So we had very fascinating, and he is also married, I don't think any mention was made of that, with Rupa Unnikrishnan. She is a combination of both. She had a Rhodes Scholarship as well as an Arjuna Award. So that means both brain and brawn in her. And they have 2 brilliant kids whom we adore. So these are the kind of things you will not see on Google, so I thought I might share some of these personal thoughts with you. But I have promised that I'll come back and talk to you about international relations or geopolitics or some other time. If you promise not to go to sleep when I do that. So thank you once again for inviting me. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, TP sir. Sree is an expert in digital innovation and journalism. He brings a wealth of experience and wisdom to our gathering. While most of his education and work has unfolded outside India, there's some of his roots that trace back to the city of Trivandrum. He has spent 2 of his childhood years here in Trivandrum at a school not so far from here. So in a sense, it is a homecoming for Sree. On behalf of Reflections and the tech community at Technopark and Trivandrum, I welcome you to enlighten us on the topic AI Beyond Hype and Backlash.
Thank you so much, Arvind. Thank you. He's a fellow Loyolite, so he wanted to get that mention in. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, Deepa. Hello, to Jyoti and to everyone at Reflections and the Technopark campus. I'm always happy to be here. I spoke here about 7-8 years ago, and at that time we talked about social media, which was I remember coming here, and now I remember the date exactly. It was in 2011, so more than 10 years ago. It was the week that Google Plus came out. Does anybody remember Google Plus? So Google Plus came out, and India immediately became the number 2 user of Google Plus in the world. And so I was here on a tour. The State Department sent me on a tour talking about social media all over the US. And of course, I had to come to Technopark to talk. And that was such a long time ago. And the world has changed so much, right? Not many of us using Google Plus anymore. And its concepts are very interesting, but it could not, we saw that Google just wasn't good at social media. Right? It was actually its 3rd social media product. Does anybody remember? There was a Google Buzz and a Google Wave, and they just had so many things that they tried and it just didn't work. And so some companies are just not good at certain kinds of technology. But Google, of course, does a million other things so well, as we all know. I have some slides that I'm going to use. We're going to pull that up, and I have a clicker here. So I wanted to talk about AI and its backlash, and to talk to you about how we should be thinking about it. But I also wanted to give you a chance I wanted to set the stage by showing you some slides and talking a little bit about where we are with generative AI in the world today. I'm very humbled to do this the coffee is now going to chase you, Acha, since the coffee is ready for you. Since you're a tech audience, I want to acknowledge that there are people in the room who make their living doing generative AI. There are people who are studying it. There are PhDs in AI in the room, I'm sure. So I come to this from a viewpoint of how tech affects everyday people. That's my life's work and my life's passion. And my dad already mentioned my connection to email and Trivandrum, that my grandmother in 1995-96 had an email ID. No, I'll take it later, thanks. Had an email ID where a boy would print out email and then bring it to the house. She would dictate an answer, and then he would go back, type it in, and send me email. It was an amazing thing. And my mother was a big fan of Viber. You all remember that, right? It was long before WhatsApp, and it just happened that WhatsApp won the contest around around telephony, and became so successful. I read a very disturbing piece in the newspaper on my way here about the battle between WhatsApp and the central government around the future of WhatsApp. Did you all see this? And so there's a chance that WhatsApp has threatened to wrap up its operations. I think it'll go out of business if Indians are not allowed to use WhatsApp. For a minute, if I can say something on WhatsApp. So I thought about what does that mean for India if there was no WhatsApp? Our connections, our everyday conversations with our families would be diminished. I just come back from a Loyola reunion in Goa that only exists because of WhatsApp, because we are all so connected. But if there was no WhatsApp in India, you can imagine there would be no WhatsApp University. There would be much less disinformation and misinformation on the world. So you have to really think about, is that overall a bad thing or a good thing? On the end, I think WhatsApp is good because we are connected. We're here. I'm here because of WhatsApp, and the invitations came on WhatsApp and things like that. But something for us to think about. You may have seen that the US is deciding about banning TikTok, right? And you know that India in 2020 banned TikTok, and that was it. India moved on, TikTok moved on. But if the US bans TikTok, that'll be a major crisis for both TikTok and for a lot of Americans who use it as a business. About 170 million people use TikTok. 7 million small businesses make a large percentage of their living from TikTok. So what happens if it closes? So that's for discussion during the Q&A. I'm happy to answer questions about anything beyond what I talk here. So again, just remember that what I'm showing you, most of this stuff will be trying to explain from a consumer side. You, of course, are a B2B company, and you power great companies, and the relationship between what you're doing and the success of major American corporations is amazing, and I'm so proud of what you are able to do for everyone. I hope the QR codes are working. Sometimes when the aspect ratio is changed, it's hard to, the QR codes may not work, so we'll test that as we go along. I wanted to give you my contact information. You have my email, you have my WhatsApp number, and you can find me. So I'll tell you just a little bit about what I do. It was funny to hear Deepa say you're a small company, because I'm an impossibly non-existent company compared to yours. It's a small, very tiny company called DigiMentors, and we work on helping organizations with their digital work. And in recent years, we've been focusing on AI workshops that I'm doing, as well as AI policy, AI strategy, and AI scenario planning. What happens to your company if you end up, with how ready are you for AI, things like that. So I do a lot of work around that. We do PR, marketing, things like that as well. As I'm speaking, I'm going to be throwing a lot of ideas, big ideas, small ideas, names of companies, tools, products, and the best way to use our time together is on a piece of paper or on your phone or on a laptop, whatever you have, just to make 2 columns, things to try now, try later, just to take notations. We call that annotation. And annotation is one of the great skills of the 21st century. I tell everyone, if you become a good annotator, meaning being able to take a whole fire hose of information and then find the parts that are useful to you, useful to your colleagues, useful to your families, that's a great skill to have in the 21st century. You'll always have work if you're a good annotator, as we talk here. So many ways to connect, of course, but this is my Blink QR code. There are many tools like this, POPL, some of you use, instead of a business card, a way to connect with folks. The nice thing about Blink is that it connects and then it sends me back your information if you wanted to connect, and it also has all my connections in one place if you wanted to grab that. So you can do that as well. Is the aspect ratio affecting the QR code? Is it working? It is working, great, okay. So I'm going to tell you that my work is around 2 big ideas. One idea is the idea of human attention. How do we get it, keep it, grow it at a time when everyone has the world in their pockets and in their hands? That's what you're all dealing with. And I want to thank Reflections for bringing me in, and to have a full house at Technopark on a random Monday when everyone is busy is not easy. And so I appreciate you all being here. And this is something that I think about a lot. How do we get and keep and grow that attention? The other idea is my theory of the 2 footprints. And I believe that we all have 2 footprints. We have a physical footprint of everyone who knows and loves us and thinks we're the greatest organization. And the other footprint is our digital footprint of everyone else on the planet, right? So to be successful, you have to grow that second footprint. The more you grow it, the more successful you're going to be. If you don't grow your digital footprint, you're leaving opportunities, money, impact, influence on the table. And how do we change that is something that I am obsessed with. As you can see, I used to teach when I had hair. It was so long ago. And you can see that there's a computer in the front, the computer that I used to use. Some of you may be too young and have never seen a computer that looked like that. In the distance, you see a young lady has a laptop. And when she would open the laptop, we'd all go, ooh, it was so exciting to see a laptop. But she had nowhere to plug the laptop in on the floor. There was no connection, so it would die in 20 minutes. So it would be very disappointing. But that's how old I am, and that's how long I've been teaching people about technology. When I was at the Met Museum, people would ask me, Sree, how come you don't have QR codes next to every painting? And I would say, we don't use them because Americans hate QR codes. But now you can see I have a lot of QR codes. So what changed with the QR codes in the world? India was way ahead of Americans using QR codes, just the way Indians were ahead of America in using WhatsApp. Indians were ahead of America in using SMS. Like, there was a point in where every Indian used SMS, but if you went to a non-technical American in any stratus of any part of any strata of society, they would never have heard the word SMS because it was not a technology they were familiar with, not a technology they needed. So texting was not the life in America. Well, that all changed because of one thing, and everyone knows what that is, the pandemic and menu cards, right? In restaurants, when they switched to that, then Americans switched to it. So you all know what all these, let me see if I can show you this here. When you look at this here, oops, sorry, 1 second here, let's go back. So that's LinkedIn. Now if you go on the upper right, LinkedIn, what's the next one? Instagram, WhatsApp, Snap, Messenger, down. Venmo and PayPal are US payment systems that are much worse than anything you use in India every day. Much worse. In America, we still use checks for a lot of business transactions, and I haven't even mentioned this to my dad. I had some scammer got hold of my banking account and issued 7 checks of thousands of dollars to somebody else. And that would not happen in India today because you don't use checks the way we use checks. I mean, we got all our money back, but it was a terrible, terrible problem. The middle is Twitter, TikTok. Anybody know what the one on the left is? That's WeChat. WeChat is, you may know, a huge account in company in China. It is not just their Twitter or Facebook. It's their Twitter and their Facebook and their many different platforms built into one. Some of you know that, how many of you are on Twitter? Anybody? Many of you. So you know that Elon Musk is ruining Twitter, right? And he's ruining Twitter because he's jealous of WeChat. He wants what WeChat has. He wants the everything app. Have you heard him say that? That he wants to be the everything app? And Elon Musk has a lot of good qualities, but he's a terrible, awful human being who has ruined Twitter. And I say that because there's so many things that Twitter does well. It wasn't a perfect company, but his taking over has ruined how it's used. I work with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and UN officials tell us that last year there were floods in Morocco and earthquakes in Libya. In both those examples, the Twitter was the best source of first responder information, emergency information, and now it had become totally useless, all in 2 years, thanks to Elon Musk. So anyway, I'll get that off my chest. But I know there are many Elon fans here because tech people love Elon, but we can have that discussion in the Q&A if you wish. But one thing I'll tell you, he has added, like WeChat, he is adding dating services and financial services. What I say to that is, what could possibly go wrong, including Twitter with those things? And the answer is a lot could go wrong. I'll also just give you here my LinkedIn just more clearly, so if you'd like to connect on that. I've been teaching LinkedIn workshops since 2006. Yeah, there's a kind of static, I'm not sure why that is, but since 2006. And the thing I've learned is that a lot of people are cautious about LinkedIn and what is its role in the world. But partly thanks to the trouble that Twitter is in, and just social media, Facebook, all of that, I think we're seeing the rise of LinkedIn, and LinkedIn recently crossed 1 billion users as well, like the other big channels. And we'll make sure that through Jyoti we can circulate the deck so you have it afterwards. When I talk about tech, I often think about dates and how we think about where we are, right? So if you think about 2011 when I was here talking about Google Circles and Google Plus in the world, you can think about if I'd come there that day, if you were listening to me, that was such an important platform and it doesn't exist anymore. If you think back to 1995 when the public web became really popular, and there were people who thought the web was just a fad, not important. We're in that kind of moment today, right? Where something really important is happening and you have to decide what is your place in the world. How are you going to use it? And I think back to 1989, another date, when Tim Berners-Lee sent in a proposal to his bosses in Switzerland, and one of the bosses wrote back, vague but exciting. Anybody know what he was proposing? You have heard the name Tim Berners-Lee? Anybody know? Well, not the internet really, but the World Wide Web. Imagine getting a proposal from your colleague that says, I'm going to make the World Wide Web, and you say vague but exciting, right? Like, it's not clear what it is. And from 1989 onwards, our lives have changed because of Tim Berners-Lee. one of the most important scientists of the last century. And so we have to think about that with AI, same way the hype and the backlash of all of these technologies, including social media. We have seen the terrible consequences of what social media has done in the world, including damage to the way young people interact with each other, direct result of social media. But keeping track of tech is hard. Here's an example of just the Apple headlines in a single day. When you look at this, you just see all those Apple headlines, and you see how hard it is to keep up. I'll just say one word about Apple, and I use Apple all the time. I'm a big fan of some of what they do. They had created on the iPhone in 2014 an QR code reader, but they didn't announce it properly, because when Apple releases an iOS, they have 75 features, and it got lost in that. And it took the pandemic for people to realize, oh my God, this is a great feature. So one lesson for all of us in tech is, if you have a product, make sure you roll it out properly, right? Marketing, internal marketing, external marketing matters. Otherwise, you'll see what Apple did, right? So the greatest marketing machine of all time in Apple did a terrible job unveiling one of its own key features. So something for you to think about as you're doing this. So anyway, so you're seeing Apple's track, how hard it is to keep track of this stuff. And some of these valuation numbers are off because these change all the time. But you can see that, 10 years ago, where we were and where we are now. These things move so quickly. How do you keep up? How do you know what's going on in the world in terms of tracking these things? It's very difficult, right? So I thought we could have some fun here. And how many of you are using any of these businesses? Anybody? No, you don't know these businesses, right? So these are all the old names of companies many of you use every day. So I'm going to show you the name of the company and then show you the new name. And I'd like you to read the thing with me, okay? So Backrub is, anybody? Google, somebody knew it, right? Okay, so, but we're going to read it out loud together, all right? So Cadabra, anyone? Amazon, good. All right, let's get a little more energy in here. Okay. Auction Web, you can probably guess. eBay, correct. All right, Peekaboo. Snapchat, okay. Bourbon. Instagram. Matchbox, maybe you can guess. Tinder, right. Somebody knew what it was here in advance. So one of the things that my wife and I had an understanding very early is anything I see finds on my computer or on my phone, it's research. So I know a lot about Tinder, but only from my workshops and how to present. So is Tinder popular here? No? Some people are like, yes. Some people are, I've never heard of it. What is that? Okay. It's a dating app, yes. Kibble is Netflix, and Sound of Music is Best Buy, which is a big tech company in the US. So part of this just to show you, right, that brands change, but it's all about the business. These are all very good businesses. And it's not about the names, it's not about anything else. So I see some of you taking pictures of this, so please, it'd be a good quiz question if you're on the quiz circuit. I'm sure there's a Technopark quiz. This is the percentage and the number in terms of the impact on the global economy by AI. And at a time when we think that we know what the media landscape is, what the business landscape is, anything that can inject $7 to $15 trillion into the world economy is worth paying attention to, as you know, and you all do, of course. And here's a share of work that's going to be exposed to AI-driven automation. And Deepa asked about jobs. And you can see in India it's less, whereas US and Japan is much higher. But Europe, global, China, you can see is affected by that as well. And there's, the distance between India and China and India, China, and the US, all of that's shrinking so much, as you know. And this year, there are going to be about $5 billion worth of iPhones manufactured in India that are being sold in the world. Before the pandemic, that would have been almost impossible to imagine. And that shows you how the world is changing. Any comments about any of this? Feel free to jump in if you have a question. We'll have a formal Q&A. But if there's anything you want to jump in to say, please feel free as well. There's a polar bear in a snowstorm. No, I don't. I'm not sure what's happening. Okay, so I'm just going to fast forward because I want to make sure we get through a lot of things. So, as I think about AI, I think about this wonderful meme from The Simpsons, and some of you are familiar with Bart and his dad Homer. And Bart says it's the hottest summer of my life, and his father says it's the coldest summer of the rest of your life. And we laugh at it because otherwise we'll be crying. And I work with a company called the Global Heat Resilience Index. And they say, some of you might remember, the 2023 summer in Europe, the world headlines, how hot it was, right? They say that we're going to look back in 2 years and say, I wish we were back in 2023. That's how bad Europe is going to be in 2 years. And what does that mean for us as the world changes? So of course I turned this into a ChatGPT joke, and I said, you know, he says it's scary, but it's really the least available, least scary, least popular that ChatGPT ever will be. So how do we adjust to that? And what are the opportunities? Here's a tool you may have seen called misgif.app. Misgif.app. You can put your face in famous movies. So that's me as Sean Connery in the movie Dr. No, which is the first James Bond film. And this is me as Han Solo in Star Wars, and that's me as Daniel Craig. And you can have fun with this at misgif.app. Anybody can add their own face to a famous movie. You can be in Barbie also if you like. Any of those movies, you can do this. And these kinds of things, face swap apps, you know, have been very popular on Android or on the iPhone. But now the quality of them are so much higher than they've ever been. You've seen that. I asked ChatGPT to show me pictures of of me and Elvis. And you can say that I don't know who looks worse, me or Elvis. But it also says here that I am the chief speechwriter for President Bill Clinton, and I was the executive editor of the New York Times. My mother, my grandfather would have been very happy if these things had happened. I'm sure my dad would have been thrilled as well, but it didn't happen. And this is part of the problem, is that there's so many fake pieces of information online, and this is just declared as a sentence. And how do we struggle against it? Here's a joke about the unemployment office being replaced by AI, and something that you can think about. The best quote I've seen about thinking about AI and jobs is the following from Daniel Pink, who's a wonderful technology writer. And he says that AI won't replace humans. Humans using AI will replace humans not using AI. And that has defined how I've approached this and how I think companies should think about this, that any industry you're in, humans using AI will replace humans not using AI. But there are so many questions that come from thinking about this, of course. You know that AI isn't new. Steven Spielberg had a movie in 2020, in the year 2000 about AI. We also have had so many people studying AI for 40 years. I have a friend who's been teaching AI for 40 years in tech courses. Here in 2012, I wrote to my friend Zeba, who became a zebra by accident. And you've seen tools like Grammarly become very popular and something that a lot of people use. But something changed in October 2022, and you know that's when ChatGPT launched, and you've seen everything that happened. Look at this company on the left that raised 100 million euros in 4 weeks, right? That's the hype we're talking about. Think of all the companies you know that do good work, produce record profits, but cannot raise 100 million euro in funding, right? They look like a boy band, somebody said, and that's good because if they fail, they can become a boy band after that. But you're seeing in industry after industry, they are using AI. We're seeing these headlines everywhere, right? This is what's problematic in terms of AI-generated images. Universities are being forced to teach all their students and faculty how to use AI, even if just a literacy course has to be done, because some professors failed their students because they thought they were using AI when they were not. So we have to think about what that means for us. If we have children in school, we have grandchildren, nieces, nephews, how do you think about what they're doing? Some of you know Mustafa and his work. Mustafa Suleyman is the new CEO of Microsoft AI. He was one of the founders of Google's AI efforts. And these three waves, I don't need to tell you, you all know these. Obviously, the first is classification, generative, and interactive. We're talking about generative AI now. And the difference between the first two, you know that in the first you're just training data to recognize that's a human, that's a tree, that's a desk, right? Now where in generative, you're generating brand new things that did not exist. As you know, you input something, you get something brand new. That's where we are. The third wave, I think, is the most interesting wave, when it'll be automated. And what does that mean for companies? What does that mean where the bots can operate autonomously? And I'll show you an example from the world of Zoom in a moment. Here's a Cosmo magazine, which is aimed at women. They did the world's first AI cover. Can you see what it says on the bottom of the astronaut's boot? It took 20 seconds to make this cover. So if you're a designer, does that mean you don't need designers anymore? No, it just means that you need designers who need to understand how to use AI. You might remember that 5 years ago, 7 years ago, there was a worldwide movement that said, if you want a job in the future, you have to know how to code. You remember this? And then all kinds of people are taking coding classes. People who should never have taken a coding class were taking coding classes. But because they're worried about jobs, what do? And you know that in the generative AI world, the first thing that these machines can do pretty well is coding, right? So that doesn't mean we don't need coders, and I know we have coders in the room. It means we need coders who can understand the tech, understand the changes, and adjust to them. That's what we need to be thinking about. And this is where we meet that hype and the backlash that's happening here as well. This was a fun thing that if Malayalis love music, so I wanted to show you this, that Rolling Stone magazine, which is a music magazine, did a whole issue on AI and the future of music. And one of the things that happened is that the Grammys, you know, the Grammy Awards, which give out the Oscars of music, they said no AI-powered music will be allowed in the Grammys. They'll have to change that because the music industry has used auto-tune for a long time and other ways of enhancing music. Remember, even synthesizers are not exactly like a piano, right? There's something artificial about that. But we will see them change that as well. And one of the things that I tell people all the time is, you know, you're playing with ChatGPT. This doesn't apply to you because you all know this. So these are maybe good slides for you to send to your cousin who is using AI and is screwing up his job prospects. Really think about the prompts you write, right? That really matters. You know, the garbage in, garbage out. You know, be clear and specific. Avoid vague and open-ended prompts. Use relevant keywords. These are really important. But my favorite thing to do on ChatGPT or any of these platforms is to interrogate the AI, as we call it. Interrogate the AI, which is ask questions, right? Ask him, how do you know? How do you know that's Elvis and that's Srinivasan? What evidence do you have? Any chance you've made mistakes? And then hearing the AI come back to you with responses is fascinating. It's sort of like talking to a 5-year-old or 10-year-old about their maths problems, right? And you say, show me the work. It's not about the answer, it's about the work and the steps. And the problem is that AI is really about the answer and people are not following the steps, and that really matters. So I've got some tips and tools on there. How about this? There's a vodka company that says it has a AI-powered party builder. But if you need an AI-powered party builder, you don't know how to party, right? That's clear. So, but this is where we talk about hype. When even the vodka companies are saying we're good at AI or we have AI tools. There's just that moment of everyone jumping on the bandwagon as you see that now. And now we're seeing serious things like defamation, legal aspects of AI. What does it mean? Who's responsible for the content? Where do we go from here with all of those things? There are now revolts against AI, right? Where these major writers are pushing back and saying, we don't use our AI for training. These large language models, as you know, have to be trained on something, and they're often training on content that is copyrighted. Here in the legal world, one thing I wanted to show you. There's so many changes, but here is Clearview AI, is a company that does facial recognition and was only used by the police. Now in America, the defendants also have access to that. It changes the landscape immediately when changes like that happen. So I think that's an important moment when we see that. I'm going to, as I talk about the backlash, I want to talk about this. There are companies out there that claim to be unbiased or showing you that they deal with high quality content. Here we see that this company says, here you can see they say that they have, these companies are high in reliability and these companies are low in reliability. And it says Bloomberg is center left, and it certainly is not. So even the companies that tell you we're not biased have a bias themselves. And we'll talk about the bias and its role in everything we're doing. I'm not going to play the video, but HeyGen is a company that makes videos of people speaking in multiple languages. And you may have seen, there are many tools like this. In this one, the head of the UN speaks in really good Hindi. But there's a question, do we want him speaking Hindi if he doesn't speak Hindi? What are the ethical aspects of that? And we can talk about that as we go forward. And something for us to think about as we are making progress. Here is, OpenAI has a new tool called Sora. Have some of you seen that in action? It's pretty magical. It basically, anything you see on here doesn't exist. And by just typing in text, so you say, I want elephants walking in the snow. These are not elephants, these are woolly mammoths walking in the snow, and it just generates it. It's pretty spectacular if you've seen it. I encourage you to look at SORA, just Google it. They're just releasing it in pre-use, so it's not there yet for people to see. So, so many changes happening, right? ChatGPT has learned to talk. What is this? So you can use it like you can use Alexa or Siri or any of those. I like this idea of the 6 principles to avoid the backlash. You want to think about transparency, inclusion, accountability, security and privacy, reliability, and impartiality. This is a very good list, and you'll say this could be a Microsoft list. And in fact, Microsoft and IBM are involved. But fascinatingly, this is from the Vatican. The Vatican put this together in 2020, 2 years before generative AI. They brought together these folks. The Vatican has a senior person who reports to the top about technology, AI, things like that. So the Vatican, I found, is very good at use of technology for a long time, even in social media. They said if you follow us on Twitter, if you follow the Pope on Twitter, we'll get you off purgatory. So some of you know what that means, right? So there's heaven and hell, and there's purgatory in the middle. You can be stuck for 1,000 years. So they said if you follow us, you will excuse you from the middle, not from the bottom, but we'll excuse you from the middle. And I'm not Catholic, but I started following the Pope in all languages because suppose this reincarnation doesn't work out and I'm stuck in purgatory by some chance. So I definitely didn't want to take the risk. But RomeCall.org has a lot of information about the intersection of spirituality and science. It's very interesting. As we think about the hype, here is something that the most senior people in AI have done, which I don't think in any other industry they've done. Think about tobacco. Think about oil companies. They always say the tobacco companies said for years that tobacco is safe. Some of you are old enough to remember that tobacco was promoted as a healthy lifestyle choice in the 50s and 60s. It's actually healthy to smoke. And now we know it's the opposite. But look what they did. These people signed a statement that said the risk of extinction from AI is at the level of pandemics and nuclear war. So you would think then they issued a 5,000-page report, how to prevent. No, this was the entire report was one sentence. And they said, good luck, everybody, because they feel like they got it off their chests, right? They admitted. So unlike the tobacco companies, they said our product is dangerous, but good luck, everyone. We can't help you is what they did. And then you're seeing that, unlike what happened with other technologies, immediate impact. And how do you do this on a global scale? This is a company called Karya. Some of you know about it. They're doing AI tools for non-English speaking users of AI and what it will do for places like India. Huge amounts of interesting work. So I'm just going to fast forward to make sure I get as many questions in as possible. We talk so much about text, it's important to remember the value of photography, images. This is my beagle in New York. That's her Instagram account. And I said, make a beagle eating dosha, and you can see it's pretty good, very effective. Dosha came along. Here's somebody teaching an AI workshop, an impressionist oil painting, and here's a cyberpunk image. The next thing, you may want to take a photograph because it's a cheat sheet for anyone trying to do images online. On any image creator, if you use these, you'll be able to do it accurately. Adjective, noun, verb, and the style of art you want it to be in. Pencil, you want it to be a watercolor, you want it to be anything else, you can do that. I know I've made an impact when my dad pulls out his phone to take an image of something he sees here. So I'm going to show you two photographs of motorcycles, and let me see if you can guess which one has a mistake in it. Okay, I'll give you a second to look at this. Ready? Now I'm going to show you the next one. It's going to be very hard to find which one has a mistake. Okay? Turns out both have mistakes, but this one is obvious, right? This is ridiculous, like a cartoon almost. This one, if you're a motorcycle expert, I'm not. There will be people here with motorcycles. There's something wrong with the handlebars. There's something wrong with where the center of gravity is. It's wrong. The problem is that most things will be like this and not like this, right? If all the errors in AI were like this, it'd be comical, but at least we could find them. But what happens when they're like this? And that's the issue that we have with this kind of tech. I'm just going to move on here. I have some examples of audio and video of deep fakes, and we're seeing in the elections. I don't know what's happened in the Indian elections, but in other elections, in Indonesia, US elections, at a massive scale, cloning of voices and faking the audio and video is going to do major damage this election in the US. Did they have that here? Did you have fake Shashi Tharoor or fake Rajiv Chandrasekhar videos or calls? There were some fake video? Praising somebody or the other, yeah. Fake, but it was fake, right? So we had it at some scale, but not in the US in November. It's going to be a total disaster because what they'll do is you'll get a call. If you're a Biden supporter, there'll be millions of phone calls going out saying, we've won the election, stay home. Why do you want to go to the elections, right? And it'll be in his voice, you'll believe it. Or it'll be in Trump's voice, you'll believe it. So that's the damage that the AI is doing to democracy as we see it. So I'm going to just fast forward. Lots of use cases, as you know. One of my favorites is on Spotify. Anyone here a Spotify user? They have the DJ, the AI DJ that does a really good job with that. You've seen that Google Slides has built in an AI generator into the images. I was teaching in Singapore, so I said, show me a group learning AI in Singapore, and the image in the middle and the top right are okay, but what the hell are these other images? Like, why? Why is this Singapore and what's going on, right? It's so bad. And this is what I was going to tell you about Zoom and thinking about the future. So somebody will say, all right, Sree, we know about all of this. Show us the future. So one example is on Zoom. Many of you may have seen this AI summary button. Are you a Zoom users or some of you are Zoom users, right? So the summary button you've seen, in 30 minutes you get a summary, yeah? And then they have the AI companion, and on the right you can see the questions. What can you say? Catch me up. You can say, what are the to-do lists? In Microsoft, anyone here using Teams? Some of you, right? So Teams, are you using Copilot yet? It's what, $30 an hour per month per seat is being used. So I have a friend who he works with Microsoft in some advanced thing, and he says maybe to every invitation, and then he doesn't attend all the meetings, but he says, was my name mentioned? during the call, and he gets told, or is it, did my boss say anything? He doesn't care about anybody else. He just wants to know if his boss said anything, right? So that's the current version. In the interactive version of AI, you know where this is going, where you know, now it says it's Rajesh's job to do this, right? Rajesh's task to do this. In the future, Rajesh is not even there, and it does Rajesh's tasks for him. That could be, some of you think that's awesome, some of you will think that's terrible. And that's the world we live in now, where all of this has changed. This is one of my favorite uses of AI, so silly. The angry email translator, you know, you may want to write an angry email to somebody, you write it, and then it will make it into a very soft, happy email. So you can take a look at that. So in this one it says, "Hi Jim, talking to you was a waste of my time. Please don't email me again." It says, "Hi Jim, how are you? How are your children?" And then it goes into a long thing saying, "Don't communicate with me." Though somebody said, can I have the opposite of this? Where you write a nice letter, it turns it into an angry note. So you can use that as well. LinkedIn is doing so much on AI, so many tools. This is something that when you get the deck will be more useful because it's hard to read. But this is the 100 top AI, privately held AI companies. Some of them are going to be bigger than anything, as big as any companies use, and some will not be. But it's so interesting because I have both, this is brand new, the 2024 list and the 2023 list. There's a company called CB Insights that's run by Anand Sanwal in the US. That's the best listing of tech, one of the best tech resources out there. So, but you can't read it where you're sitting, but every industry is represented here. Healthcare, defense, construction, education, finance, insurance, agriculture, cybersecurity. Everyone has world-changing companies in there, and there's no reason some of them won't be right here in Technopark, right? Maybe some are already from Technopark, and that's exciting, but keeping track of them is hard. As we get ready for Q&A, I want to reflect on a couple of things. This one is, how do you detect if something is AI, right? That's one of the hardest things to know. Here I took my newsletter and I submitted it, and it said it's 97% written by human, though I wrote it 100%. That's okay, but what if my teacher's cutoff, my professor's cutoff is 98%? Then I have failed the test. The whole class have failed. So this is useful for us to think about for anybody in our circles who is, any children, any adults, anybody studying. What do you do when this happens? If your professor says you have failed because of this 97 versus 98, what will you do? Right? So we have to equip our students, our children, our people around us to think about these issues and where do we go from here. You'll find a lot of tools that say we can improve your photographs online, and you may have seen this one. This is a young lady on the left is a real person, and she submitted this photograph to improve her headshot. Look what happened. What did they do, right? They made her eyes blue, they changed her skin tone, and they did that because human beings, at the end of the day, program these AIs, right? And it just thinks, it believes that a person who looks like that is better looking than a person like this. But this is something we see in life in many places. You've seen, it won't happen in Kerala because they design these for us, but in overseas, if you go and you have skin tone like mine, you put your hands under the wash basin to wash your hand, it doesn't come. The soap doesn't come, the water doesn't come because it's expecting lighter skin tone. I went to a museum once where they said we have the world's most beautiful bathroom. So I said I have to use it, and then I wanted to wash my hands. No water was coming, so I was so angry, I was getting ready to tweet, "Goddamn racist bathroom." It turned out that it was actually a foot pedal, right? So sometimes it's racism, sometimes it's user error, sometimes it's a foot pedal. You don't know. But I was ready to fight the racism of the racist toilet. This is a site I love. It's called thispersondoesnotexist.com, where everything here, every person is fake, and they just generate it. So how do you know something is fake if you look at it? What are some of the ways you learn? So one of the things you can do is you can look for the number of teeth in a person. Right here, you can see too many teeth. You can see these hands behind the person, or this person here has 6 fingers, so that's unlikely to be human, but you know Hrithik Roshan has 6 fingers, so you cannot always be sure of that. Another clue is that you look at the ears and you see these women with mismatched earrings. Doesn't mean women will never wear mismatched earrings, but they're unlikely to sit down for a portrait wearing mismatched earrings, right? But this is of today. You know what the AI is doing, right? It's learning just like us. Next year, this all will go away. They'll fix the teeth, fix the hands, fix the way this all comes down. So I'm just going to throw some tools up here to try. You've seen Claude, Perplexity. The fact that you have at Reflections put in Copilot for everybody is amazing, because that, and making sure everyone learns how to use it properly is a really good thing. So this is something that you can look at. And then before I sit down, I will just share my takeaways about AI, and then we'll take your questions. So my first takeaway is that no tech can live up to such hype. It's impossible, even though it's so hyped right now. And every industry will be affected, and lots of money will be made and lost in these moments, right? And most careers will be upended in unexpected ways, as we're already seeing. To pay close attention, learn new skills. You saw the Daniel Pink quote from before. And then I hate the term hallucinations, right? That's what they call them. They call mistakes hallucinations, but they're actually errors. They're mistakes. BFDs, big effing deals, right? And then be vigilant about the dangers. AI companies won't fix the problems. And I'm sorry to say this in a tech environment, but you cannot trust the AI companies to fix the AI problems. Even if you are all good people, the problem is that these companies' rewards are not to fix them. That's why social media is so bad, because the best parts of social media have been corrupted in the worst ways by the rewards of social media. And finally, I say that Team Human will prevail in the battle of humans and machines. But what humans will prevail? Will it be the same people in Silicon Valley that make all the money, all the power, or will it be distributed globally? Will we have more companies in Kerala, in Technopark, that should have the share of that power? Will humans share that power? Will they be good citizens when they do that? These are all questions that we all have to ask. I don't have the answers, but I look forward to talking to you. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Sree. That was wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now open for your questions.
And push back, please.
One very personal question.
Very personal question.
Yeah.
Oh my God, my
It's
dad is here.
No,
Be
but
careful.
again, it's a lot of information, and thanks to sir for giving a brief introduction about you. It's awesome. Thanks to Deepa too, and reflections. Maybe I need to come closer a bit. Is it audio? Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for the great session. Quick thing, right? Finally, we talked about that probably about 15 years ago. We talked to every kid in India to become a software engineer. You need to code, right? I just mentioned about it's not about coding, how to really do a prompt engineering, right? So what will happen in India if you look into it, right? We develop or generate thousands of engineers every year, probably the number one across the world. What will happen? Because we don't need now think about it. We as a company, we hire probably about 100 people or 80 to 100 people every year with a 1,000 employee company. But with all these changes coming in, GPT, right, Gemini, Microsoft, everybody is coming in. Is that going to reduce the opportunity, right? That's something which we would like to hear from you.
Thank you. And that's a very good question that we should all be thinking about. Like, I saw the headlines about IIT grads having trouble getting jobs. Did you all see these headlines? Like IIT Chennai and several places. I cannot imagine 2 years ago this was the case, right? So that has happened in, not just in, say it happened in our lifetime, it happened now. It's happening right now. So I think this is where we, as a society, have to think about where do we place the emphasis. I'm always asked, about is there a role for liberal arts in a world where everything is STEM? And I believe that the best companies have that combination of STEM and arts in the people they hire. I'm not saying you hire all philosophy majors, but you want to think about that combination. And for coders, for people, I don't think the courses have changed fast enough to meet the moment, right? And that's why you're going to see a lot of, I know Arjun works in the L&D space, but you need a lot of learning and development, a lot of coaching, a lot of training for the people you already hired. McKinsey, the company that many of you know, such a successful company, it spends all its time telling other companies how to do its job. They are now paying thousands of their employees, giving them 1 year to find other jobs. You know, it's just hard to imagine because it was hard for them to predict where the jobs are going to be. And these are the best people in the world. So what do we do? Who do we hire? If I'm the CEO of a company like yours, this is occupying a major part of my time. But I also say that one of the problems in India, in the US, in digital technology has been the understanding that when we hire people, what is our obligation to them, right? Do you remember one of the things I'm so mad about Elon is, you know, he fired 3,500 people. Do you remember that? And then he used these H-1B workers and worked them so hard just because he could, right? Like I run a small, tiny business, but I see every day that if I could make more money for myself if I change the projects I give my team, right? But what is my role as somebody who can give employment? There is we talk right now about what's happening at IIT, but in about 5, 10, 15 years, there are going to be entire industries where hundreds of millions of people will be unemployed. Hundreds of millions of people. What do we do as a society then? What do we do with these people? Can they all start? I mean, the old days would say they all learn to code, but that's not going to help them. So what are they going to do? What is our obligation as a society, as a government, as leaders? What should we be doing for our people? In the US, we talk about long-distance trucking. You know, it seems like you'll always need drivers, but one day they'll solve the problem of, automated driving. 5 million drivers will lose their jobs. What happens to those people? Do we have universal basic income? These are things that government people are not equipped to think about because they don't have time. They're all working on other things. But we as technologists, all of you in the room, have a role to play in this. What do we do? What kind of people do we hire? What kind of training do we give? What is our obligations? And maybe, ma'am, you have some thoughts on this that you can share now or at another point. Just like, where do we go? Who do we hire? What kind of people do we hire? And I know that several institutions are changing and just to remember, there's 18 months since this all happened, right? And we've been wrong before. One of my friends is a guy named Sebastian Thrun, Thrun. He used to run Google Labs, and he invented the massive open online courses, MOOCs, these big courses. He also invented the driverless car in Google. And there was a time when we said these MOOCs are going to change the world, right? And it helped a little bit, but there's still magic in sitting in a classroom and learning with a professor. E-learning is important, telemedicine is important, but there's still a magic of a human being, a doctor talking to a patient. But Vinod Khosla, whose name everyone in this room knows, he talks about how in 5 years, if he gets cancer and someone in a village in India gets cancer, the villager will have better outcome than he will. Why? Because he is going to go to a Silicon Valley cancer doctor where there's a whole system that hasn't changed in 25 years. Whereas the villager in India who doesn't have an oncologist on call is going to have the best AI medicine available to him. And he will have a better outcome, will live longer than Vinod Khosla in Silicon Valley. That's hard to imagine, but it's great if it's true, right? It's going to be great for India. But how do we make those adjustments? What do we do? I met a cardiologist in Trivandrum today who is already using telemedicine for cardiology patients who don't have access to, sometimes you have a chest pain, it's a cardiac emergency, and sometimes it's gas, right? So how do you tell the difference? The AI can help you find that difference before you come to Trivandrum, right? So those kinds of things. Thank you. Questions? Yeah. Please tell us who you are too. Yeah.
Hi sir, my name is Shanavas. I have a question. How we can foster better guidelines or regulations to foster this future generative AI which can be useful for the best interest of the society or human being?
Wow, that's a very deep question. Do we have 3 hours to discuss this? Probably not. So my 1 minute answer is, depends on you. You and every other person who's working on this, right? Deepa was telling me that you have AI projects today, right? Many, many AI projects. Every decision you make is part of the answer, right? Every decision that maximizes shareholder value versus everything else that a company can do makes that decision. There was a time, by the way, when it wasn't understood that shareholder value was the only thing that a company does, right? That is responsibility. What is our responsibility to the workers? What is responsibility to the environment? One of the things we didn't even mention about AI is the backlash that's coming because of the environmental impact of these big data centers, right? We're talking about huge waste of electricity, water, all of those things. What will we do as a country? Where will we put these things? Saudi Arabia said to everybody, come there, we will build all these things, partly because they have unlimited land in Saudi, right? They're building new cities and they can do all that. But so to foster good for society is up to the individual people who are in the room when these decisions are made. I talk about this with the iPhone or Android, if you whatever you use. You know, one of the most powerful things in the world is your home page, right? Your screen, your first screen, and everything on this is engineered to make you addicted to your phone. Every square centimeter of this is made to do that. Maybe some of you worked on these issues, but have you ever grayscaled your phone? You know how you can just turn it all gray? If you do that, you'll find you don't want to use your phone anymore. You'll put it down. You know that it's very easy to do. Both, if you just Google grayscaling your phone, you'll just turn everything on your phone into black and white, and you won't touch your phone. But that's because engineers in Silicon Valley and elsewhere made it so this is addictive, so that the notifications, the other thing is I tell people, turn off your notifications and you won't pick up your phone, right? Because you're addicted. The same damage that was done by tobacco industry by fine-tuning the tobacco to kill and make you addicted, not to kill, but to kill, to be addicted and therefore kill you, is the same principles that made this. And we are all addicted to this, right? This is the first thing we touch in the morning, the last thing we touch at night. Even if there's somebody sleeping next to you, that's what you do. And this is the problem with where we are with technology. So I'm not blaming any of you, but all the things that are happening are made by human decisions. Human beings have made these decisions. And any amount of regulation will not work. Any amount of, have you ever seen Mark Zuckerberg or any of these officials go in front of the US Congress when they're called to testify? It's like a joke, because the senators, the congressmen don't know what questions to ask. In fact, John McCain, who's a famous senator, started asking almost like customer service questions, tech support of Tim Cook was sitting there, and he was basically asking him the equivalent of, can you fix my phone? You know, something is not working. And I'm sure that's the case in India as well. We have obviously great technocrats who are ministers and everything, but at the end of the day, the bureaucrats don't know enough, and that's why we're suffering from that. Thank you. Other questions? Yeah, please. Hi.
Hi, Sree. My name is Sree Kumar.
Hi.
I lead the AI capability building in Tata Elxsi. That's the company I work for.
Yeah.
Thank you for your insights. So I have a follow-up question on the jobs part.
Yeah.
So if we look historically, every technology transition has brought more automation, more efficiency, but we have seen new jobs getting created, right? So do you think that with this revolution of Gen AI also, there is a chance of new jobs getting created? And if so, what would be the possible areas where those jobs could be?
Sure. Thank you. Great question about what's the role of what are the opportunities for new jobs in this space? And you can be kind of simultaneously optimistic and simultaneously pessimistic. Part of what AI does is remove the need for humans in vital, specific instances where humans were needed, right? So once you remove those, then what happens? And this is something, as he said, has happened historically. So many jobs used to be, run. So if any of you have studied the history of computing, you know that file manager, which is something we think of on your, you go up and you hit view, file, save, or printer. Those are actual jobs of human beings. File manager was a human being who did that in the age of mainframes. You had to actually be a file manager. Now it's just an icon on your desktop, right, or on your laptop. So there are going to be a lot of interim jobs, understanding AI. How do you optimize it? How do you make it good for society? There'll be lots of jobs like that. But even those will get removed because the relentless flow of getting in fewer people, not in a company like Reflections, but you talk to senior managers in companies. You know, one of the things that they give you bonuses is for controlling the number of people you have. So that's the incentive. In economics, it's all about incentives, right? So the incentive is to have fewer people. The best way to increase your stock price is to cut jobs. You saw in the US, as of today, more than 2 lakh jobs have been lost in the tech sector. 2 lakh jobs, right? That's more than were lost last year in the entire year. And these are all very qualified people from India and other parts of the world and America, top universities. But that's because the best thing they can do is say, I'm going to have a lower head count. And so are there other new venues, new opportunities, new ways of thinking? Are there going to be new tools created? We'll suddenly have a lot of more free time in our lives. Are we going to just watch YouTube videos? Are we going to do something else? These are all questions I don't have the answer for, but I am, as I said, at the same time optimistic and pessimistic. And maybe somebody here has some ideas. What do you think about jobs? Are there any new kinds of jobs that might come along in this AI world, apart from prompt engineering and those kinds of things? Anybody have any thoughts on that? If you had a younger brother or a younger sister, would you tell them to go into tech? What would you tell them to train for in this world? Anybody? Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So she was saying STEM plus liberal arts, right? The ultimate STEM and liberal arts combination in the world was Steve Jobs. He spent as much time thinking about fonts and how they work. He took Japanese calligraphy classes because he wanted to think about how the Apple computer generates fonts, as he thought about with tech. He was not a technical person in that sense, but he understood, and he infused every step of the Apple experience is connected in a liberal arts way, in thinking about the impact. Like if you go to a Apple office, you'll see that the wood of the conference room is the same wood in the Apple stores anywhere in the world that all come a single forest in Canada, and how they speak to each other. If you open an iPhone box, it was very important to Steve to how the box opened. You have to pull. There's a little bit of, if you ever opened one, there's a little bit of it feels like a magnet. There's just like a little give. But in that seconds it takes to open it, he wanted you to have that experience all over the world when you open that. And the second that the Indian iPhone is as good as anyone made in China is when it has that same, the box feels the same. And that comes from a liberal arts background, not from the tech background, right? The tech background helps you implement that. So the more that we can think about making that connection, the more successful we're going to be. Should we do a couple more questions? And then I know you have a task, so.
Just follow-up point on that. Good that you brought that liberal arts point. But we also
speak up or come closer?
We also hear from some of our customers. Basically, there is a need for authentic human experience, right? People actually slowly getting fed up with all these machine things, and they like to have more of human experiences, human interactions. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think about that all the time. When I was at the Met Museum, this is one of the largest museums in the world, we used to worry that if we put up our images online, people won't come. But we found the more we put images online, the more people would come because they want that authentic experience. Kids, I have 21-year-old twins, and their approach to digital is very different from even people in their 30s. They don't want to broadcast. They don't want to show everybody what they're eating. They want their friends to see what they're eating. Like, they care much more about the direct community than they think about the world. And so that authenticity is going to be very, very important as we go forward. I mean, the tourism business in the world depends on that, on how people want to go. I think after the pandemic, we also want to be in places like this where we can have genuine connections with people. I think that's going to be important. Yeah, I don't know. It's up to you. You're in charge. Okay, good. Hi.
Hi, Sree. My name is Joseph.
Hi.
My question actually is about, the IT industry is built on ideas, right?
Yeah.
And so from one side, it can be a very favorable thing. The example I want to give is of referring to AI as the new colonialism, which is the plunder of ideas. And I'm talking specifically about Noam Chomsky, right? Recently, the linguist, one of the best known linguists of our time. He said that AI, because of ChatGPT, so if we imagine all the reflectors here in the room had, a white paper or a technology, a contribution to a technology, and they're entitled to a royalty from it. And then the same idea gets plundered by ChatGPT or any of the other AI platforms. How does this change the concept of intellectual property rights? What is rightfully due to the owners of that copyright or intellectual property? And how do you think this is going to shape up in future?
Thank you. Great question about thinking about intellectual property. And so important because everyone in this room is a creator, right? Whether you're, you do a lot of, on the tech side or on the production side or whatever, you're a creator, and some of what you create is intellectually, is valuable IP. And I'll step aside the question of what is the relationship between a company and its employees, because that's a different thing. But this is what's happening today. What you pointed out, the New York Times, if you've seen the show Game of Thrones on TV, you've seen that show, like the George R.R. Martin is the creator of that show. He believes that his intellectual property has been stolen to train all these models, right? So he believes that has already happened, and we can see that. So there are major lawsuits going on now, and they'll resolve themselves in the next year or two. Those precedents will determine the answer to your question. But what can we think about? I work with a refugee agency. They didn't realize, but their workers were putting information about the refugees on ChatGPT to get information back. But basically, they were giving personally identifiable information to ChatGPT. They didn't even know. The company didn't know. So it's part of the AI strategy, AI implementation, AI policy that you need to think about. So we talked to them about building a sandbox where, because we have all these refugees coming to the US, let's say you're from Afghanistan, you're a carpenter, then the AI can tell you in this state in the US, there's a shortage of carpenters, and there was already a good Arab, Muslim community there. They may not be Afghan, but they will feel some solidarity there, and so they should move there. But they can now do this offline rather than online. So people are submitting things they shouldn't be all the time, right? These tools, people are uploading their PDFs, like they write a white paper and then they put it on there. It's gone. You can't get it back. So what do we do as companies in the policy on that, I think is really important. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Pradeep
Hi.
from Digital University. I remember listening to you in 2005, in fact. You spoke on smart surfing,
Yeah.
how to use internet wisely, use the time. And in 2011 on social media, and now on AI. So each of your talks in Travancore Hall speaks about the current trend in technology. But I think from 2005 on, if you see now, probably the complexity has increased rather than technology helping in making life simpler. In fact, recently Microsoft had warned that most of the elections are going to be rigged by China using AI. So with these complexities happening, we need ultimately good human beings. Technology is on one side. So is there a conscious effort happening, like say for example in the US, to bring in education, as you said, liberal arts, etc. Is there a conscious effort for seeing how technology can be used in a responsible way?
Wow, first of all, I feel so grateful that you listened to me 3 times. I feel so sorry you listened to me 3 times over those times. But thank you, Pradeep. I'm very grateful to you. Responsible use of AI and where do we go? I mean, this is going to be sort of what we've been talking about all this time. That I like what he said. Did you hear it? He said, we need better human beings in all of this, right? We know the computers will get better. We know the human beings, the tech will get better. But where are we as human beings in all of this? Like when we look at tech, how do we identify and foster? I think Deepa used the word elegant when you said about what kind of company you're trying to build, right? I'm glad to hear you're 5x or 10x or whatever. That's great. But at the heart of it, what kind of community are you building, right, is as important as that. But I'm sure in your own reward system that your board has, they don't do enough about the elegant. It's more about the size of the company and the money. And how do we change that as a society? How do we make that happen? Something that Pradeep that happened just before the pandemic in the U.S. Something called the Business Roundtable. That's the biggest companies in the U.S., including J.P. Morgan, Microsoft. They all came together and they signed a document that said we are going to change 50 years of business history. We are going to agree that shareholder primacy is not the number one task of a company. It's going to be about customers. It's going to be about employees. All of that. It was so great. I thought this was an amazing moment. And then the pandemic hit. And what happens when the pandemic hit? Everyone's worried so much about money and the bottom line and existential threat, right? One of the things we forget, by the way, I just say in a room of all of you, is if you read any fiction, movies, books, or anything about the future in a pandemic or in a crisis, there's no internet. Have you ever seen that? It's all gone. Electricity, everything is gone. But thanks to people like you, during the pandemic, we had everything. We had the internet. We had electricity. And in fact, many companies prospered during the pandemic. Every other pandemic in every movie, people are shooting each other or eating each other because they can't even survive. So we were lucky in that sense, but that's because of technology, because of people in this room and elsewhere and your predecessors, that we have this amazing technology. And I think we take it for granted, and we all take it for granted, that what we survive now is unprecedented, right? Compared to what happened in history. We also saw, if you go back to the 2018 influenza, the Spanish flu, and how many people that killed, we were very lucky. I was in China 1 year after the pandemic, and you won't believe that they have completely moved on. Not just moved on in a business sense. They have no acknowledgement that they had anything happened in China or the world because of what happened there, right? There's no memorials, no conversation about it. Just look ahead. And I think the societies and countries and cultures where we look back, where we appreciate where we came from, how close we were, right? That everything could have fallen apart. It could have been horrible. Especially in America, we saw misinformation, disinformation. America has 5% of the world's population, and we had 20% of the world's deaths from the pandemic. Why? Because of misinformation, disinformation, social media being amplifying lies about the vaccine, things like that. So the idea of better human beings at the core of it, and your comment about elegance and value, I think is really important. So shall I hand it over to you? Or, sorry.
We are running short on time. We'll take 2 more questions. Anybody? Okay. Yes.
This is something related to your profile where you are part of the Nobel Laureate Outreach this fund. So you have been deep into the AI and its impacts. So in a Nobel Prize, when we see, it's very authentic work that we reward, right? That's what we see. So do you see now the AI started influencing there too?
Thank you. You really read my bio. So I work with the Nobel Prizes on their outreach and their connections. And so when they asked me to work with them, I said, why do you want my help? They said, we want more impact. I said, you're the Nobel Prizes. You want more impact? Then what about all the other companies and organizations in the world? That's how these companies think, right? Even the Nobel Prizes want more impact. And I think what you said about authenticity, right? They're rewarding such milestone work. 2 years ago, I'm not involved in the prizes, by the way. Please don't lobby me. I cannot help you get a Nobel Prize. But we gave the award to the gentleman who worked on the battery, the lithium battery that powers everything we do. So I don't think the AI stuff has permeated yet, but we're going to see, and the Nobels will tell you that they made mistakes. They've given the Nobel Prize to Aung San Suu Kyi for peace, even though she ended up doing later on she did so much harm into her own people. Sorry, the Ethiopian Prime Minister. So they have made mistakes, and it'll be harder for the Nobel Prize and for other prizes to recognize the actual impact of people. So I think they will take a longer term view instead of a short term view. And I will say this, even though I work with the Nobels, that they're not giving Mahatma Gandhi a Nobel Peace Prize. Tells you everything, that humans make mistakes on a global scale. They apologized, and 50 years later did a deep report, you can find it on their website, about the mistakes that were made, why Mahatma Gandhi didn't get a prize. And they recognized that immediately. The next year they didn't give any prize because they thought because one of the rules, it has to be a living person. That's in Alfred Nobel's will, that it has to be a living person. And of course he died in 48 January. So for that year they didn't give a prize. That was their way of acknowledging Mahatma Gandhi's impact. But as we know, the British put a lot of pressure not to give Mahatma Gandhi the Nobel Prize. So thank you for reading my bio, my God.
We have one more question from there.
Hi. Hi, Sri. I'm Rahul. I'm from Reflections itself. I have a question. It is generally considered that this pandemic has brought a really big boom in the development of technology. So even if it is because of a pandemic or any other reason, if there is going to be another boom in the technologies, so what will be the next best thing that will be coming in the future?
I often am asked things about the future, and I never really answer them, because if I was good, I would not be sitting here. I would have made so much money. I'll tell you a funny, there's a joke, not a joke, a story that you will all understand. Is Bitcoin legal in India? Somebody's like yes, and others are no. But you all know what Bitcoin is. And in 2012, I was at a dinner, and this young lady said to me, said to all three of us, anybody have Bitcoin? I said no. So she said, download on your phone our digital wallet. And she gave each of us 2 Bitcoins. Okay? In those days, Bitcoin was worth $1.10. Today, anybody know what it's worth? $70,000. So 2 Bitcoin I had, and I kept it in my wallet, and I promptly lost access to it, forgot about it, because it wasn't important to me. So for her, she was basically giving about $10 worth of Bitcoin she gave out. But a lot of people those days would buy thousands of Bitcoin for almost nothing and just keep it, and then some of them became super rich. So people who know this story, first of all, feel very sad for me, and then they say, don't you feel sad that you had you had something that you had in your pocket and it became worth $100,000 and you lost it? And I say, I don't feel bad. I mean, I do feel a little bad, but I don't feel bad because I never earned it, right? That wasn't real. It meant nothing to me. It didn't really exist. And if anybody tells you that you got something for $1, that you would have held it till it's worth $70,000, is lying. Because as soon as it hit $10, I would have sold it, right? Or it hit $100, I would have sold it. $1,000, why wouldn't you sell it? You got it for $1. 1,000% return is pretty good, right? But to say I would have held it to 70,000 is no way I would have done it. So that's why I don't feel bad about it. So that's what I'm saying. I'm bad at predictions. Otherwise, I'd have kept those 2 coins and everything would have been good. Or I bought more. But for all of you, as we wind up here, just to say,
we can't predict the future, but more we know about the past, we can understand some of the opportunities. And where do we go? What do we use? Somebody today told me, NFTs are so great, but there'll be people in this room who don't care about NFTs at all. Doesn't mean anything to you, right? So we don't know where those are going. But what are the things that are going to have the maximum benefit to your company, your people, your state, your country, the world? That's where we should be. This is why I dislike Elon Musk so much. And if you'll give me 30 seconds more on Elon Musk. Elon Musk says he has done more for the planet than anybody. Have you heard him say this? Yeah. Because of the electric car. He has done a lot. He didn't invent the Tesla, but the Tesla has done a lot. But this man who claims to love the planet is spending all his fortune, in part of his fortune, to get off the planet, to move to Mars. Anybody who tells you that Mars is our future is betting against the Earth. And he is supporting the worst Republican and conservative anti-Earth environment policies in the United States. In every opportunity, you will see he will endorse Trump in the new elections. He's going to impact the elections. He lies every day about the environment. He's done more damage to the environment by supporting and platforming these people than anybody has ever done. It's true he's done some good things, but lying about vaccines, the next time there's a pandemic, I promise you, America will have 80% of the deaths because it's so badly done because of him and other people. And so we are in that position where a great hero as him, so many people, including in this room who love Elon Musk, have to understand that he's doing enormous damage. But we don't see that because our love for someone like him, because he just lies you lie with enough. There's a famous saying, by the time a lie goes around the world, between a lie and the truth, a lie goes around the world by the time the truth puts on its pants. In the morning it's getting ready, it's putting on its pants, the lie is already gone around the world. So how do we think about that as technologists? And again, apologies to all the Musk people in this room.
Thanks, Sree, and thanks everyone for asking those questions. Now to add a bit of fun element, we have the rapid fire round. Parvati is almost at the edge of her seat. I ask you to take over.
My name is Parvati Nandakumar, everyone, and we're going to begin the rapid fire section with Sree Sreenivasan. So the first, there's only one rule, which is I ask you the question and you answer within 6 seconds. Okay, you ready?
No.
Okay. Here goes the first question. Who is your biggest influence in digital media?
So many people, but I would say Steve Jobs and the whole thinking of the connection between technology and the human.
Amazing. All right, next. You're shaking. Okay. What are the top three books that have influenced you, and how so?
Well, one is definitely a book called Everything I Learned in Kindergarten by Robert Fulghum. Some of you know this book because it shows you that the things you learn, you're told by your family. Like I used to say during the pandemic, my mom and dad taught me to remove my shoes, wash your hands when you come inside. All of those things helped me survive the pandemic. But this book says that everything we are taught in kindergarten is what taught us about being nice to your friends, be honest. All of those same features are good. So Robert Fulghum's book. I would also say that I loved Great Expectations, the Charles Dickens book. I read that multiple times because it shows how life can change at any time. And so many other things I can tell you, but I'll never forget reading multiple times as a child the Dashavatar in the Amar Chitra Katha format. And that taught me a lot about not just Hinduism, but also how you think of the world, and a lot of the things that we now are dealing with, they talk about it's very simplistic form, but one of my friends who runs a company called Scroll, which is scroll.in, it's a big media company, and he bought the Amar Chitra Katha company many years ago, improved the efficiencies and the business side of it, and that's why it has a life today. He sold it to the Esser company afterwards, but so I'll say those 3 books.
Great. Alrighty. What is your proudest achievement while working as the first Chief Digital Officer at the Met?
Encouraging people to come to the museum, increasing both our digital audience and our physical audience, I think was something I'm very, very proud of. And helping people who are not museum goers to go to museums and think about that. And those are some of the things that I would think about. I'll also use this moment to say, since my father is in the room, that he is a Shakespeare scholar who grew up in Kayangulam. And he introduced me to Shakespeare when I was a much younger child. But one day I got to go to the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust and help them with their digital. And that was a highlight that came from my love of Shakespeare and his love of Shakespeare.
All right. What is the best career advice you've received that got you through your toughest times?
Your network will help you. You're only as good as your network. And build your network when you don't need it so that it's there when you need it. When I was at, my dad told my story, but he didn't tell you the full thing. He glossed over the unhappy parts of my story, but the Met where I was, I loved my job, but they had financial difficulties and they asked me to leave. And the chief digital officer, chief design officer, chief marketing officer all left on the same day. And I went online and said, I've lost my job, tell me what to do next on Facebook. And I gave people a Google form to fill in. 1,400 people filled in this form with some very good ideas and some terrible, awful ideas. But it was the worst moment of my life, but I got a global digital hug that helped me get through that point. So I tell everyone, build your network when you don't need it so that it's there when you need it. Work on your LinkedIn now, not when you are of an emergency.
So, what is one project that you're particularly proud of during your time as the CDO of the New York City?
Many things that I think about really is, one of the things is helping startups come to New York, stay in New York, be born in New York. But also acknowledging that New York was never going to be #1 in the world in startups. That will always be Silicon Valley, but we can beat Boston, Austin, Miami, London, and other places, but understanding what your role is. And so that's why I tell people, when I come to India, I talk to a lot of startups, that there's nowadays the world, the opportunities are the same for everybody, and it's just become much easier. And so where we see the success, whether it's here or anywhere else, is up to us.
So what is the best advice you've received from your father, Sir T.P. Sreenivasan, and your mother, Ms. Chandralekha Sreenivasan?
Oh, wow. I mean, maybe start with wash your hands when you come home every time. Take off your shoes when you come home. No, on a serious note, they had a son who didn't want to be a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or ambassador. And my grandfather gave him a really hard time, gave my father a really hard time. He thought he was a failure as a parent because he let me become whatever I wanted. And that's not, many of us have those interactions, but my grandfather and I solved all the things later. And people would ask him, what became of your good-for-nothing grandson? And he would say, he's a professor at Columbia. He'd say, what does he teach? Journalism. He would say that. Or he wouldn't lie, but he'd say he works with computers, which was true. I did work with computers. Or he was very proud because the degree you get at Columbia Journalism School is an MS. So he was very proud because he thought he could tell people I took a science class. But the thing that they taught me really is that let your children do what they want, because you trying to force them to do something does not result in kind of a success for, they have to be successful in their terms. And that's what I've done with our children. Our twins are doing, whatever they want. But my dad used to say, whatever you do, make sure you do it really well and honestly, and as fairly as you can. And that was what I tried to follow with my children.
Alrighty. We have the last question now.
Oh, I thought that was the last question.
So what is one advice you would give to enterprises who are still on the fence about adopting AI into their ecosystem?
Well, you heard me say multiple times, which is that humans will not be replaced by AI, but humans using AI will replace humans not using AI, from Daniel Pink. And so you have two options. You're either going to be someone who understands this technology, deploys it, uses it, or you're going to have AI done to you. Who do you want to be? You're going to, just like on the information superhighway, we used to talk, that's a term you don't hear anymore, but we used to say that in 95. And by the way, among the people who misread the success of the internet was Bill Gates himself. So there's no guarantee that anybody can predict where things are going. But I will say that we have an opportunity now, that inflection point, 1989, 2011, 1995, we're at that point. All of us are going to be affected. If you're a company that's on the fence, you haven't understood that fence may disappear before you get a chance to decide.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for being here.
Next, I request TP Sir and Deepa to be back on the stage. Hari, would you join us to share some mementos? As a token of our appreciation and gratitude, we'd like to present a memento to both Sree and TP Sir. Deepa. And Hari would be giving it to TP Sir. Sree, I'd request you to check that out. It's something that we have done, yeah? And show it to the audience once. Yeah, that's what we want you to open. It's an AI-generated avatar of yourself.
Sorry, I can hold it up properly.
Yeah.
Mystery box. We'll find out later.
Thank you.
I'll just say that I have a rule: selfie or it didn't happen. Can I take a selfie with all of you? Acha, come. We'll go to this side. Deepa, please come. Please, all of you come. We can't fit everybody in, so we're going to do one with this side, one with this side. Ready? Everybody, please wave. People on this side, please wave. Thank you. And now we'll take this side. Acha, Deepa. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Wave, please. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Please keep it up. Good luck.
We have the vote of thanks from Jyoti. I'm so sorry.
Dear Sree, TP Sir, Deepa, and all our guests here, students here, and dear reflectors. It is really a moment of pride and happiness. We never thought it would have been possible, but sir, you facilitated it. And while talking about what Sree has discussed with us, you spoke in a very natural, authentic manner about the reality of AI. Most of the things I don't understand, not being a technology person. But thank you for connecting it to the world around. Thank you for connecting it to society around. Thank you for emphasizing the aspect of authenticity. And also, I do feel that as technologists, we have a greater responsibility towards society, and that social angle is of much importance. And I feel that the way you address him as Acha is so cute. From the time, I could talk to you, that is, and what we could feel here, there is a special bond. And we are happy that, TP Sir, we are happy that we could witness that moment for the first time when you introduce your son. That is special in that way also. So thank you, Sree, for this engaging, insightful discussion. I feel that I also think that most of us feel that we have a lot more to ask him. We have a lot more to listen to him. And
Happy to come back anytime.
yes, thank you. Thank you so much for that. TP sir, thank you so much for, I've listened to your discussions on foreign policy, everything. I worked under you. This is the first time that I'm listening to you speaking about your son. So that was so special. Thank you for facilitating this. And Deepa, thank you for, for the first time, this was an opportunity we did not expect. And when we got it and you embraced it with such open arms, and thank you for that. And so many of us here, many dignitaries are there, many of our invited guests are here. We called up and we were a little tense when the time was about the Hajjat. I called you up. There's so many people who all came here. Thank you everyone for coming here and making this a beautiful, memorable event, and thank you to the students here. And there are many who have worked behind this, many in reflections, many reflectors who have tried hard to make this a beautiful event. Thank you everyone. Thank you to all the audience. I think the biggest takeaway that we have is that the technology in our hand is safe, responsible. We handle it with responsibility, and we use it to make this world a better place and touch the lives of many people, millions of people around us. And we hope that we'll have more engaging, meaningful, and fulfilling discussions this in the future. And TP sir, we wish that you would come back to us for that inspired talk sessions where we'll listen to him about his international experience as an ambassador. And Sree, wish you all the good luck, and thank you again to all of you for the wonderful event. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And my LinkedIn is blowing up here, so I will respond to all of you who are saying, I'm looking at my LinkedIn. It's full of connection requests. So thank you. I will connect with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is me. My mother wanted me to get Gulf Gate. Do you know what that is? Gulf Gate? Yeah, but I did not do that. She was very disappointed about that. So now I have it here. Now I don't need it. Thank you, everybody.
Just to add, the coffee table book is also completely AI generated.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you so much.
So we have some of the great minds from Technopark here, and I'd love you to meet them.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.